why was sociocracy conceived of to begin with, and what was its goal?
So when you look at an organization, what an organization is, right? There's a bunch of people wanting to do something together. But as soon as you have more than one mind doing something, you have to start coordinating and making decisions, right? And making sure people know what they need to know. And typically, what people think is that there is really only one way of organizing, which is what we see as top down. Of somebody says what we do, and the rest just carries it out, and some fancier version of that. Or people say, oh no, forget about that. The only way of doing it is we're all equals and we all just get together and talk. And then we only do something if everybody's happy with it. So those are the two extremes. That's what we have to choose from. There's voting also, that's its own little thing. And people don't know much else because that's what we've been brought up with. But there are other versions of doing things, and sociocracy is trying to combine, in particular, the power of the small group. So how can we work with what I would call a human size? So human size, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people, not, not 20, not 2000. That's just too big for us to manage because it gets too complex. Small group size, knowing what we're doing, building some expertise, hearing each other, and still having a sense of the whole. So it's connecting small groups with a large group kind of experience and that dance. And then the other dances, there's a lot of both and in sociocracy. One other one is moving forward, but also making sure we hear each other and we have a sense of belonging and safety with each other, trust. So, and those are not either ors, those are all both and. So there are a lot of, I guess the me and the group, and then forward motion versus hearing each other, slowing down versus going fast. A lot of those are in balance there.
Hmm. Okay, I want to touch back in briefly to something that I think is really important to highlight, and that is, yes, we're realizing that the hierarchical model of decision making is outdated and doesn't function well anymore. But there has been this strong push towards, well, that, in spiral dynamics, the green meme, the we are all equal, we must have consensus and stuff. And so I want you to just touch a little bit more into why that is not optimal. Why, from a sociocracy perspective, consensus decision making where everybody is equal does not work well.
Well, for me, it's more about numbers than everybody equal. Everybody equal works for me with a bunch of footnotes. What it is mostly for me is about group size. So let's do a simple thought experiment. Let's say these 100 people have to decide something together. If you think about it, it's like, okay, 100 people who are equals want to decide something together. Oh, how could we do that the most inclusive way? Well, we put 100 people into one room and let them talk. Yet that sounds great at first, but we all know what that would actually look like. It would actually look like this. Probably, let's say 5 or 6 people would talk most of the time. So the vast majority of people will not be heard. And that's just a fact of life that we sometimes forget in our idealist, oh, let's all just be the same. But it just doesn't add up. It doesn't happen that way. So that's one big factor. And then the other big factor is asking the question, how do we ask the question of what's our goal? Do we want to all agree? Do we want to make everybody happy, or do we want to find enough common ground to move together? And that to me is sometimes, I guess I'm just going to go there real quick. The decision-making method that we use in sociocracy is consent. And that is when we make a decision when nobody objects. A decision is made when there's no reason not to do it. While consensus, more traditionally, and I know there's a lot of discussion about whether that's too simplistic, and I'm aware of that, yet the idea basically is in consensus that we talk until everybody agrees. But that, and sometimes people see consent as a watered down version of that. Like we lower the bar of like, oh, fine. Okay, no, it's like, if it's just barely good enough, we say yes instead of we agree. But to me, that's not how I see it. How I see it is that I am accepting that for the good of the group, I will not always get what I want, but I will be in basically what I get on the other side is that it will always be heard if I have an objection. And also that we get to play and really experience things. So that for me is a huge advantage. We get to try things out instead of getting it perfectly right. And I might have a different point of view and nobody needs to convince me because nobody needs to make sure I think the same thing. We don't have to think the same thing and we can still do things together. To me, that's better news than everybody walks around convincing everybody that they have the perfect plan. That's not a world I want to live in, actually.